Hi, today we're going to do a demonstration on how to make face masks for My Red Shoes. On the website, you will find the template and the instructions for the face mask. I would suggest you print out 2 copies of this particular template. It says in the pattern that you will need to leave a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, which means basically if you cut out the large template, you will be making a medium-sized mask. And if you cut out a medium-sized template, you will be making a small mask. So I have here a medium-sized template, which means I'll be making a small mask, and that's okay. You'll want to pin the template onto your fabric. The fabric is folded in 2, so the fabric we have from the fabric store comes folded, and you're going to need 2 pieces of this fabric for the front and 2 pieces of an alternating color fabric for the back. So we're just pinning the fabric here. Also, you'll want to pick up bias tape. So it's a single fold bias tape, 1/2 inch wide. This will be used as the straps for the mask. Now that we have this fabric pinned, we'll want to go around and cut out our pattern. Remove the pins. So now you have 2 pieces for the front of the mask. And then we will cut out 2 pieces of an alternating color or different color for the lining. Now that you've got the pieces of the face mask cut out, you should have 4 pieces. Now we're ready to cut out the ribbons, the bias tape. You'll need 4 12-inch pieces. So I'm going to measure 12 inches and cut. The next step is to join the center seam. So the 2 pieces, what you're going to want to do is take the right sides, the good sides, not the back sides, but the right sides, and you're going to put them together, matching the edges, and we're going to pin the center. So this curved part is the center, what they call the center seam. We're going to pin that down, and we're going to sew that together. And this is about 3/8 of an inch seam. So we move over here to the sewing machine, and we're just going to sew the center part together, leaving a 3/8 inch seam. Once we have both pieces sewn together at the center, and I ironed it so that the seams are even, we're going to put the right side up like this, down, and you're going to take the bias tape, which I also ironed just so that it's easier to work with. And there's 2 sides of a bias tape, the full edge side and the clean side. You're going to want to take the clean side and put it at the corner with just a little bit peeking out, because you want to make sure when you sew it together that it catches it. So you're going to pin that, and remember that the cord goes inward towards the mask. You're going to pin all 4 corners. And then you're going to take the right side of the mask. So if this is the side that's going to face out, you're going to put it down towards what you've got, the first layer, and you're going to pin this together all the way around. You're going to want to pin all the way around with the ribbons, with the bias tape on the inside. So these are going to be in the inside. You want to be careful that you don't catch this. You want to try to match up the seam together so that it looks even when you're pinning around the curve. And when you're pinning through the ribbon, make sure you don't catch it on the front of the mask. Okay, I've pinned almost all the way around. What you want to make sure you do is the bias tape should peek through a little bit, and remember you're going to sew about 3/8 of an inch for the seam, so you want to make sure the bias tape is not right at the edge of the corner, but enough where you can sew that 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to finish pinning here. You want to also make sure that the bias tape is sitting in the middle of your mask inside, so that when you pin, you're not catching any of the bias tape on the actual pin, so that it doesn't catch while you're sewing as well. Also, you'll notice that I left an opening on this side, and we'll want to start from where the bias tape, a little beyond where the bias tape is, sew all the way around up to past where the other side of the bias tape is, leaving a little hole. We're not going to sew that yet because we need to be able to pull this inside out. And I'll show you what that looks like after we get this sewn. As you continue sewing around, remember to ensure that you're not catching any of the bias tape as you're sewing the top and the bottom parts. And you can do that by peeking through and just pushing that bias tape down into the mask if you feel like it's coming up, and then continue sewing. And remember, as you get towards the end of this last corner where we started from, you're going to sew up through where the other bias tape is, and you're going to make sure that that gets sewn down, and then you're going to stop, leaving a hole. That's where we're going to pull the fabric through. I'm just turning now. Here I've sewn the bias tape down, so I'm going to stop. And what you'll see is we've left a hole, and this is where you're going to pull the mask inside out. It's easiest to pull the bias tape out first. There you have the mask, and now we'll want to sew that hole down, but also then sew all the way around to ensure there is a seam. So you want to go all the way around the mask and sew a small edge all the way around. Okay, so now we're going to sew this edge closed and also create a seam that goes all the way around the mask. If you'll notice, I had to use black thread when I was sewing the inside. I've changed the color of the thread now to red. It's optional so that you don't see the thread coming through the mask as much. Now you'll just want to trim off the threads and your mask is complete.